All right, time for world politics. Let's see what's happening in the political front and what folks may be saying if they're joining us and all along those lines. But let's just check and see what's happening in the political front first. Pagers are exploding across Lebanon in an attack targeting Hezbollah members, according to a source, and Hezbollah has vowed to punish Israel after the pager explosions across Lebanon. So definitely that's something that we're seeing on the political front and all along those lines. So there's definitely that kind of political thing happening in that way. So it definitely looks like Hezbollah was hit by a wave of exploding pagers and blames Israel. And at least 9 are dead and thousands have been injured. So that's something that's happening in the political front and all along those lines. And it looks like in Iran, Iran's morality police will not bother women, according to what their president is saying. So apparently, there's been a quiet revolution in that area, and Iran's new president vows to ensure morality police don't bother women. So there's this whole notion of morality police, and all along those lines. And coming back to Israel, Israel says halting Hezbollah attacks is now a war goal, as officials are warning of a wider battle and all along those lines. So definitely it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out and what goes on in that space. And as I said earlier, it was a Brazilian mayoral candidate that attacked his rival with a chair during a live debate. So that is definitely something that we're seeing as well, where folks are attacking folks with chairs and all in that space. So it'll be interesting to see what folks have to say about that and if anything is going on in those realms as well. So definitely we got the mayors attacking each other with the chairs, and we'll see what goes on in that way and whether there are any other kinds of political conflicts that are taking place in that kind of way. So it ought to be interesting to see what goes on in that kind of space. And Al Qaeda is targeting Russia's Africa allies in a rare attack on a capital. So militants attack a military training camp near the airport in Bali's capital. So Malayan army says capital Bamako is under control following a gun attack and all along those lines. So definitely it'll be interesting to see what goes on in that way. And UN experts are warning of an unprecedented Venezuela repression. So UN experts cry worsening repression in Venezuela after a contested election. So Venezuela is intensified its repressive machinery after Maduro's re-election. And Putin has ordered the Russian army to expand to become the world's second largest. So Putin has ordered the expansion of the Russia's active military forces, which is bringing that to 1.5 million active troops. So that is a lot of folks there as well. So it'll be interesting to see what folks have to say about that as well. But definitely a lot of things are going on in that political landscape. And we're interested to see what folks have to say here in the Pod TV land about the political landscape and what's going on in their side of the world with politics and all in that kind of way. So, waiting for some of our folks to pop in, see what they've got to say about a number of these issues and what they've got on their mind and all along those lines. So, definitely wait and see what folks have to say about these things as Blinken has traveled to Egypt for ceasefire talks as Israel adds new war goals and everything. So Biden's national security team has no imminent plans to present an updated ceasefire proposal. Yeah, definitely that's something that we'll see on the news as well, and definitely working on fresh hostage ceasefire deal. The U.S. is urging Israel to give talks time to succeed. So Blinken is to travel to Egypt and discuss Gaza ceasefire hostage deal. And apparently, the Georgian parliament is approving a law curbing LGBTQ rights and all in that space. So LGBTQ rights are something that are in the news in a number of places, not just here in the U.S. as well. So definitely it'll be interesting to see what folks have to say about this. And Israel officials are saying that Hamas leader Yahweh Sinwar can leave Gaza with family and apparently end that conflict and all along those lines. So there's been even reports about how Yahya Sinwar is using tactics learned in Israel to communicate with outside world from Gaza tunnels. So the Hamas masterminds the low-tech means to stay alive is what some people are talking about and all along those lines. So and some Israelis are leaving the country due to the war in Gaza. So I'm sure a lot of people will have some thoughts around that and what's going on in that space as well. But definitely there's a lot of these issues that are being talked about. A lot of folks are having some thoughts around a number of these things and all along those lines. So it'll be fascinating to see what people have to say about it. A number of these news items and what's going on in that space and with a lot of these discussions. So we're waiting to hear from some of our other panelists to see if they're going to join us or not and what's going on in the world. I know that sometime back, one of our panelists had sent me a video about a Lebanese filmmaker, and I hadn't had a chance to play it. So I'm going to play it right now, and we're going to see what folks have to say about what this comment is. And this is a video that definitely Lee Rose sent some time back, so we're going to play it and then hear people's comments back on it afterwards. So let's check this out.
الناس كلها بتصرخ انه حماس بريئة وحماس عم بتستعمل قوة فائضة عليها إسرائيل وكل هودي الاشياء. مش مظبوط. حماس منظمة إرهابية مجرمة ارتكبت مجازر ب7 أكتوبر أدت هذه الارتكابات إلى أنه إسرائيل عملت ردة فعل كتير كبيرة. وصلنا لحديت اليوم ل39 ألف قتيل بغزة، وبعده السنوار قاعد تحت الأرض، يعني ما سمعناش صوته. يعني شو هالمفخرة، شو هالقائد العظيم يلي امبارح عينته حماس. أول شيء أنا بالنسبة لي تعيينه هو كشف حماس على الآخر إنه هيدي منظمة ما بدها السلام ومش فرقانة مع شعبها ومش فرقانة مع مصير شعبها. 2 من 3% القتلى مدنيين، مش لأنه إسرائيل جزارة ومجرمة وعم تضرب بالطيران بلا وعي وإلى ما هنالك، لا، لأنه المقاتل الحماساوي قاعد تحت الأرض وتارك شعبه يموت فوق. قلنا 70 سنة نحن نتضامن مع قضية فلسطينية. أعطيني نهار اللي كان في شيء اسمه دولة فلسطين واجوا اليهود كحتوهم من دولة فلسطين، نحن عم نقاتل كلمة قضية. أمتين الأرض كانت لفلسطين، كانوا اثنيناتهم قاعدين بالأرض. ولا نهار كان في شيء اسمه كيان عم نقاتل على قضية فيك. خربنا لبنان كرمال قضية فيك، تضامنا مع قضية فيك ودمرنا حالنا. ما في شيء، يعني عم نقاتل على شيء مش موجود. ما كان في ولا يوم شيء اسمه كيان فلسطيني.
امبارح قال السيد لكل المعارضين في الداخل ما تطعنونا بظهرنا، أقله اسكتوا بهذه المرحلة.
يسكت هو، يسكت هو. نحن إذا ما سكتنا شو بنقدم وبنأخر؟
وإذا حكيته
بس هو إذا سكت يمكن نخلص لبنان من كارثة كبيرة جاي عليه. يسكت هو، يستحي، ينقلعوا المحطات والإذاعات والتلفزيونات كلهم، بقاش حدا يستقبله، بقاش حدا يفتح له هوا. هذا ملوث للعقل اللبناني، هذا ملوث للتراث اللبناني، هذا ملوث للتاريخ اللبناني. بقى مزبوط مش رح يعمل شيء، لأنه هو من طينة هتلر. هتلر لما بلشوا يقولوا له الحرب خسرانة سنة 45، قبل بسنة من ما خلصت الحرب، يقولوا له الحرب خسرانة، ما كان يقبل يستسلم. لو قبل يستسلم لما قالوا له الحرب خسرانة كان وفر على برلين دمار شامل، وكان وفر 500 ألف قتيل ألماني. بس ما فل هتلر وما انتحر هتلر إلا لما دمر برلين. ونفس الشيء نيرون ما استسلم وراح لمصيره إلا لما حرق روما. ونفس الشيء هيروهيتو ما استسلم إلا لما انكبت الإمبراطورية على اليابان. وموسوليني مثلهم. هذا لن يستسلم إلا ويدمر بيروت، لن يرحل قبل أن يدمر بيروت. ولما تتدمر بيروت مرة جديدة هون بصيروا مسؤولين يلي سكتوا.
كان بدي أقول توضيح أنه المنصة تبعنا مفتوحة لكل الآراء بكل الصفوف، ونحن مش ملزمين بآراء الضيوف إن كنت أنا على مستوى الشخصي أو المنصة. أنا بدي أشكرك اليوم الكاتب والمخرج يوسف الخوري على حضورك معنا. شكرا لك.
All right, that was just a video clip that was shared with us by one of our people that is with the network, Lee Newton Rhodes and everything. So if folks have got comments or thoughts about that, just wanted to share that and let folks know what they think about those comments from that particular Lebanon gentleman and everything along those lines. There's been another conversation that folks may be interested in as well. Prolific music producer Pharrell Williams said in a news interview that he is annoyed by famous endorsements in the wake of celebrities taking a stance on the elections. I don't do politics. In fact, I get annoyed sometimes when I see celebrities trying to tell who to vote for, Williams said in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter. Of course, pop star Taylor Swift dominated headlines last week when she endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris, who has a host of other A-list supporters for her 2024 campaign. Swift's endorsement immediately followed the first debate between Harris and former President Trump. So Williams responded to The Hollywood Reporter, asking if he would allow presidential candidates to use his music in their campaigns. There are celebrities that I respect, that I have an opinion, but not all of them, he said. I'm one of those people who says, what the heck, shut up, nobody asked you. When people get out there and get self-righteous and they roll up their sleeves and and they're out there walking around with a placard, shut up. So no, I would rather stay out of the way. And obviously I'm going to vote how I'm going to vote. I care about my people and I care about the country, but I feel there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I'm really about the actions. Williams' comments came after Trump's political campaign was hit with lawsuits for copyright infringements from prominent entertainers. So most recently, the White Stripes followed through with a threat of legal action after a Trump aide posted a video featuring one of the band's songs. And last month, Margot Martin, Trump's deputy director of communications, posted a video montage of Trump traveling to a rally with White Stripes' song Seven Nation Army playing as he boarded the plane. The band filed a copyright infringement lawsuit accusing the campaign of flagrant misappropriation of his hit songs, and the suit was filed last week in the Southern District of New York. So I've got my friend Sasha Starr up in every single week. We're going to see what he's got to say about these folks that are suing Trump, and I guess they might sue others as well. So other musicians who oppose the Trump campaign for using their music include Isaac Hayes, Mick Jagger, Lorde C., Blondie, Sheryl Crow, Green Day, Lionel Richie, Elvis Costello, Keith Richards, Steven Taylor, and Roseanne Cash. I'm going to bring in Sasha Starr, and I'm glad that he's with us and everything along those lines. So we'll see if anybody else joins us in that kind of way. But what is your take on some of these celebrities that are upset that their music is being used and they didn't give any permission for their music to be used? So it looks like White Stripes, which I believe is a rock group, has sued Mr. Trump. So what is your take on these artists that are saying, I didn't say you could use my song?
It's continuation of the same strategy. Do whatever, just being in the news all the time, every minute, every day, and so on. The same thing like that immigrants are eating dogs and cats or using music without being authorized. It doesn't matter, just to be in the news. He is fighting to stay out of jail. That's his life destiny, to be in jail, and he's fighting all he can not to get there. So that's why he's going to do anything, whatever it's assassination attempts on his life or whatever happened to him, just to be in the news. That's all. It's very simple, and it works. Believe it or not, it's not going to help him to win the election, but it works because he has nothing else. He has no other levers. He has no other chance. He has no program. He doesn't understand anything in economics and politics and anything. I even, you know what, I went as far as I was on a party on Sunday, and I said, you know what, I'm curious actually for Trump to win presidency, because I want to see how he will end up the war in Ukraine in one day, how he will do many other things that he's promised, and that's not going to happen. But the only one way to find out that it's not going to happen is for him to win the presidency, and that's not going to happen. That's all I can say.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, glad that we got Jacoby with us as well. One of the things that I saw recently is apparently the John Wall, the chairman of the Alabama Republican Party, said that despite the fact that he's had these 2 assassination attempts, and we know that football, and particularly college football, can be very popular, but they are saying that he is looking into the possibility of attending the Alabama-Georgia football game in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. So what is your thoughts around this? Because it looks like he's going to try to get some garner support by attending one of the major college rivalries, because we know that is a major college rivalry and everything. So I guess he's going to try to walk in there and entice all of these football fans to vote for him. So I guess they're trying to say that he is looking to possibly visiting the game. I'm guessing he'll be in some sort of box and everything along those lines, one of those celebrity boxes, but maybe he'll even get a chance to speak. But what's your take on his possibly attending this game? Because I know that's a big rivalry in college football.
Which game is he going to?
Alabama, Georgia.
Oh, it doesn't matter. I mean, he's desperate right now. He's pulling out all the stops. Sasha's spot on. He doesn't have any plans. He has no idea. He has concepts, as he calls them. But he has it right now because everything that the GOP or the Republican Party was going to run on was Joe Biden is old. Outside of that, they had nothing. And when they pulled that away from him, he's got nothing now. So he's just going to get desperate, name call, do a whole bunch of other stuff. So, yeah, it doesn't matter if he goes. He's still going to yell out some craziness. They were cheering my name, even though a bunch of people probably boo. Yeah, he's just begging for votes right now.
So and we got Rick joining us as well and everything. So I'll see what he's got to say about this notion. Apparently, Rick, former President Trump is thinking about attending the Alabama-Georgia game. So we know that that's a big rivalry game. So maybe he's trying to win some of those independent votes or get some of the votes from Georgia, which is a swing state.
I have a problem with college football now. Once I realized that a lot of the best teams their stands are filled with people that I wouldn't get along with politically. Mm-hmm. Like, so Alabama, Georgia, like, I don't know, Georgia's pretty purple. It can go, but like Alabama, like I don't think I could root for that team anymore because knowing how they wouldn't like me and I wouldn't like them.
Yeah, we got a good point there and everything. Speaking of political stuff, sometimes things can happen on the political front that surprise people because apparently this is partially what happened with the dancer, from my understanding, because I think she was doing one of those stunts, the dancer that died recently, the dancer from Sierra Leone. But now there is a Walmart footage because apparently there was a gentleman recently here in North Carolina that was found to be hung, and of course some people were thinking that was a lynching and everything, but now there is footage that appears to show the gentleman buying a rope one day before he was discovered dead. So I'm sure there are going to be some people that are thinking that this was a stunt gone wrong and everything along those lines versus an actual case of true racism and everything. But I just wanted y'all's take on that because this is not a good look, the fact that apparently there is footage showing him buying the rope that apparently hung him.
I always like going with Occam's razor, where you look for the simplest explanation, which isn't always clear, but a guy buying rope is like, well, that's a heck of a coincidence. So there's a thing I want to talk about that I kind of think is pretty great, except that there are parts of it that aren't great. Mm-hmm. So I want help in trying to figure out what to think of it. So Israel, it looks like, hacked into Hezbollah uses beepers like people used 30 years ago to talk to each other. And they figured out how to make them blow up. And so they blew up thousands of beepers, and 2,800 people have been injured and 8 are dead. It's like a huge spy caper. And that's great, except that one of the dead is an 8-year-old girl who's obviously not in Hezbollah. I've seen people on Twitter saying, well, this is an indiscriminate attack since you don't know who's going to be holding the beeper when it blows up. On the other hand, Hezbollah, when it launches rockets at random into Israel, that's indiscriminate too. So I don't know. Help me think about it.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I'm not sure how that would work, because definitely that's one of them tech things and all along those lines. But in that same space, and we will get to the beepers, and maybe Nick's got some thoughts. There is somebody that I know that Sasha has mentioned in his investment show, because I want to say he made his money in PayPal, and he made a interesting statement, and I definitely want to hear what folks have got to say about that. But apparently, Peter Thiel is predicting that the 2024 elections won't be close. He's saying that one side is simply going to collapse. So he predicted that either Kamala Harris or Donald Trump would win the 2024 election handily. Thiel, who has claimed that he's strongly pro-Trump, pointed out that most elections aren't close. He was justifying why he hadn't spent money on the 2024 election despite some pressure to do so. So he's a conservative tech billionaire who's known for his contrarian views, and he's making another unusual prediction. He's saying that the 2024 election won't be close. So during a live appearance at the All In Summit earlier this month, he acknowledged that the year's race between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris was basically 50-50, though he said he believed Trump was favored. But he also argued that the past two presidential elections have been historical aberrations in terms of how close they are. So basically,
they haven't been aberrations, because the last election where somebody got more than 53% of the popular vote was 1988. Every election has been pretty freaking close.
Here's the thing with Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is a very wealthy person. He's a billionaire. He is a chess master, so he's pretty good at chess. He's also a lawyer, so he's pretty good at law. In terms of a political analysis, he sucks. So the thing is, this is the same thing with celebrities. Just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're good at everything. It's not like he's a polymath. So unfortunately, Peter Thiel, he's totally wrong. He'll get smoked. I wish he would bet on this. I'd like to bet him on this one, but it's going to be a close. It will not be what Peter said. If he really said that, Mark, see, you got to fact check. Did he really?
No, I fact checked it and everything, because he also said that either the Kamala bubble will burst, or maybe the Trump voters really get demotivated and don't show up. So he said one side is simply going to collapse in the next 2 months. So he's arguing that somebody's going to collapse, either that Kamala bump with the whole DNC is going to fade out, or that the voters that are Trump people are going to get demotivated because of all of this, and they're just not going to show up.
Rick has a comment.
So here's my argument against that. So we're always supposed to be on the lookout for October surprises.
Mm-hmm.
So Harris hasn't been in politics that long. She was only a senator for 4 years, didn't complete her term before she became VP. So the shorter the time you're in politics, the fewer the skeletons in your closet. So,
but the other problem, I don't think Peter Thiel is very good at political analysis. If you look at it, in this country, we have very deep-seated Republicans, deep-seated conservative states. And we also have the same thing with the liberal states. And then on the toss-up states, they're all very close. I mean, that's like saying, I'm Peter Thiel, and I think by the end of the election, we're going to be able to convince Jacoby to vote for Trump. It ain't happening. Or, I think by the end of the election, we're going to convince Shaquille to vote for Harris. That ain't happening either. So the thing is, Peter Thiel, sorry, you're wrong. I respect the fact you made $1 billion because you won the lottery on PayPal. You and your lottery winner, Elon Musk, that should be taxed into oblivion. I respect the fact you went to law school and became a chess master. But in terms of political analyst, you suck. Go on.
I think what he's trying to actually do is hedge his bets. Basically saying, well, because if you look at the way that the Trump campaign is going and how they've gone to the, just basically the extremes of everything, because their goal is to tear Kamala Harris down instead of providing any plans. Kamala Harris just did the interview with the National Association of Black Journalists earlier today, which was a great interview and very calm, very presidential, very smooth. They even pressed her, but it was never contentious like the way that Trump's was. So I think what Peter Thiel is doing is saying, well, if Trump, thinking that because he's a mega donor to Trump anyway, or to the Republican Party, if I say that one of the parties is going to collapse. I don't have to say that it could be my party or it could be that party. I'm just hedging my bets. Somebody could collapse. And if they do, I win because I pointed that out.
I just looked it up, and Peter Thiel is a big investor in Polymarket, which is where people go to bet on politics.
Right.
And so I don't know, is he trying to get more people to bet by
that could be it too. You might be right, Rick. In other words, he may have a different motive for making.
He might have a vested interest.
Vested interest, making some extreme statements to get more people to vote. In other words, it has nothing to do with reality at all.
Nick, hold on a second. He also said something that Trump has said as well, because he went on to claim that if the election was indeed closed, Harris and the Democrats would, quote unquote, cheat via ballot harvesting and election rule changes. Isn't that really the accusation that's also been made against the Trump side?
Ballot harvesting. Can we please go on? There was I agree with Rick Rosner. I mean, 1,500 votes out of 2 billion cast were improper. This whole thing, could we please stop discussing it? Because there's no. Let's talk about Peter Pan and the fairy godmother. I mean, it's ridiculous. We need to do is hone on the issues which would destroy the Democrats, which is of course the national debt, which was higher under Biden now than it was under Trump, at least in terms of real debt to GDP. And then we need to hone on the other issues where they're ignoring Medicare, Medicaid, going broke, and on top of it, and he doesn't even discuss it, the outrageous spending that the Democrats do every year on things like climate change, internet for all. I mean, it's just, and charging stations everywhere. Why didn't he deal with the real issues rather than these phony issues like,
I got two questions to ask you. I got two questions to ask you about it and everything. But hold on a second. What is our thoughts? Because the last thing that Peter said, and I'm going to get to the other issues that you just brought out, which I know Jacoby will argue with you on and everything. But what is your thoughts around this notion? Because he said, somebody asked him how you would change U.S. elections. And I've heard other people say it as well, which is we should have just a 1 day of voting and practically no absentee ballots and stronger voter ID laws. So what is this? Your thoughts around this notion of having 1 day voting?
That stuff is garbage.
That is incredibly stupid. I'm going to be out of the country and I have the right to vote. So whoever floated that boat, Mark, put his IQ at about 25, because there's people like myself. I'm out of the country. I'm going to absentee vote. Tell him to go screw himself. What do you got, Rick?
If I had to make one change, I'd make them do it like France, where you have a 6-week election season. We've had people running for president for 2 years, and it's very nervous making and annoying. And in France, they do it for a month and a half.
Really? Okay. Yeah. I mean, here's the reality. It's not an issue. The only reason it's an issue is your stupid friend Donald Trump keeps bringing it up. And Donald Trump is not the smartest guy who walked the planet, not even close. So you got a dummy who keeps bringing it up and everybody keeps following it. So all the sheep and pigs of the parties follow this idiot. So please, let's talk about some substantive issues. This is not.
I want to go back to the legal thing about. Hold on. Let me
substantive issues, and this is what I'm going to get into. You and I know.
Let's talk about Ukraine.
What is the notion around? Why don't you want internet for all? Because definitely it seems to me that there are some people in.
I do want internet for all. It's not the government's function to do it.
Let me just finish the Thiel thing. Let me just finish the Thiel. I think it's going to be close at least for the next few weeks, because you had one unstable personality in this whole election, and that was Biden, where it was always like iffy whether he could get through a speech without like looking old. And he fell over. He looked old as shit during the debates, and now he's gone. Now Harris has a stable personality. So do all the other 3 candidates. Now Trump is always collapsing, but that's factored in. He's always saying crazy crap. He could, so everybody's pretty much going to be the same person all the way through.
Well, Rick, just to touch on what you're talking about, the collapse may still happen, just because, again, I'll point out the gift that keeps on giving is JD Vance. Now, because JD Vance, when they put him on the ticket, that means people started listening to what JD Vance was saying, from cat ladies to oh, these people, these teachers, single teachers without kids, all these crazy things that he's saying, even the eating the cats and the dogs, Donald Trump is parroting it. Donald Trump is saying this crazy stuff. And now, even more so, you had one gift with JD Vance. Now you got the second gift. What is this relationship between Laura Loomer and Donald Trump? Because Melania hasn't been seen in a while, but Laura Loomer seems to be hugging up on Donald Trump really close.
Okay, so I have a theory about that Laura Loomer probably jerks Trump off. I don't think, but nobody cares. Nobody on his side cares. If anything, they're like, he's getting, a hand job off a 31-year-old who in certain light looks pretty. It's like, that doesn't hurt him. Now, JD Vance, I would argue, JD Vance is not a stupid guy. He went to Ivy League, and he said
he went to Yale Law School, the hardest law school to get in the country.
All right, so there's
please, progressives, do not underestimate the intelligence of JD Vance compared to your vice president.
So there's a chance that somebody sits JD Vance down and they show him a video of his greatest hits, and they go, "You can't keep doing this." There's a chance he adjusts because he's not as dumb as so.
So I agree that he's a smart man, but at the top of the ticket, you cannot say that. So he's following behind the top of the ticket, because if you saw his interview when over the weekend where he tried to get pressed on about the dogs and the cats things, he's a smart guy, sure, but he's socially awkward. And that socially awkward part is very apparent when he's in these interviews being pressed for what he says. Then he says some idiotic stuff to defend Donald Trump, because Donald Trump says some idiotic stuff. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We can say JD Vance is smart and all this, but he's saying dumb stuff to protect the man up top. So it's just.
I mean, at this point, I used to think, my wish used to be that Donald Trump would have a mini stroke during a rally and just start saying the N-word like 15 times in a row. But that's no longer my wish, because I think he could do that and he wouldn't lose any of his supporters at this point. He's like,
that's the one thing he said that is true. He could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and he would not lose support, because people idolize him and see him in a different light. When he became the nominee in 2016 and was coming down the golden elevator and stuff, riding this whole populist movement on top of riding this wagon of hate. And he brought in a total new group of voters, and that became the power in the Republican Party. And once that became the power, the GOP co-opted that power, brought it into the mainstream of the Republican Party, and Donald Trump owns that now. He is that party.
Along those same lines and everything, because one of the things I brought up earlier, and I brought up on World Edition earlier, and I don't think it'll happen now because we've got a woman running against a man, and there is the age difference as well. But do you think that at some point we will get into the whole notion of what's going on in Brazil? Because apparently in their mayoral campaign and everything, they literally were throwing chairs. And speaking of football, I started thinking about like that coach in basketball that had done some stuff with chairs way back when and everything, and even the one from Ohio State that had taken a chair attack as well. So are we going to see maybe our politicians doing some WWF moves even here in the U.S. and everything, because we have the Angry Geeks that we air here on the network? But are we going to see some WWF type politicians? I mean, we did elect Jesse Ventura.
We almost had that during a State of the Union. There was a near scuffle where one guy was held back, but no, I mean, it's not part of our tradition.
The thing is, our tradition is basically just talk about cult of personality and ignore the issues. We have another very important issue that was completely ignored, is the issue in Ukraine that's going on right now. And, I hate to say it, but it's pretty important when you have Russia being a very aggressive player in the market space. And you have one candidate says, I'm going to solve it next day, and the other candidate doesn't have a clue. So we do have some serious problems that need to be addressed.
She said that she met with both Zelensky.
So just a quick thing. I think I think we're on the precipice of we could go either way on that. If Kamala Harris takes the presidency, we're not going through throwing of chairs. If Donald Trump does, I hate to say it because he's already said he's put that out in the ethos and that is his MO.
He's never thrown a chair before in his life.
No,
I don't think he
I'm
can
not talking
throw
about
anything.
him throwing
He has a
chairs.
hard time throwing a golf club.
I'm not talking about him throwing chairs. I'm talking about
Maybe throws a golf
the
club.
other individuals in that MAGA wing will, because they've already threatened that at one of the actual congressional hearings with one MAGA senator threatening the Teamsters or one of the union head members, hey, we're going to take this outside. Come on, big boy, and all this other stuff. So that will come down the pike because that is going to be okayed. In terms of the Ukraine thing, I do think Biden has a clue, but the problem is that it's not as black and white as we're trying to make it out to be. It's very complex, and I'm sure Sasha can give more depth.
Yeah, Sasha's holding his hand up.
Yeah, so I was just going to say that
Sasha.
we're on that point where Biden's clue is that, release, trying to avoid the open world war.
Okay, Biden was criticized by Republicans at the same time that he's too soft on helping Ukraine and he's delaying the help and he doesn't provide enough help and so on. On the other thing, the same Republican Party was accusing him that he spends any money on Ukraine. There should be $0 given to Ukraine or provided its weapons or so on. In my opinion, Biden's help to Ukraine can be evaluated on a scale from 0 to 10, the 10 is the highest, say 3.5 at the best. He was delaying help, he was not providing help, and even now he's delaying. However, I would like to mention that because Biden has interests of America first and foremost, not Ukraine, so he's maneuvering the fact that Russia being the nuclear power, he's doing everything possible and impossible not to get U.S. on the brink of the nuclear war with Russia, because I'm not sure if Russia is ready for that, but United States and NATO are not ready. They will be ready only in 2027. So before 2027, they have to sort of bide their time to prepare their arsenals or so on. However, Ukraine is doing absolutely incredible thing. Never mind their incursion on the Russian territory. And guess what? Putin didn't use nuclear weapons or tactical nuclear weapons or anything at all. In fact, he cannot even get the lost territory from Ukrainians. Furthermore, there are a lot of people in Russia that are now deserting to Ukrainians. They don't understand what they're being killed for. They're losing their precious young lives, incredibly so, without any understanding why it's happening. Whereas Ukrainians, they're fighting for their motherland, and they will do so until they will prevail. Now, how Ukraine can prevail? Forget about America's help for a second. Ukraine, right now, they're preparing their own ballistic missiles by the name Polyanitsa. They already use them. They just don't have too many of them. They have to grow their arsenal. But they're very capable weapons. They can shoot at 500 kilometers a distance. That's not so shoddy. And there are more and more studies were done on Russian economy. And as I said today on the show, I believe that by the end of this year, 2024, Russia will run out of resources, finances, and everything. And my friend from Kiev, Ivan Kucherenko, he corrected me that it's going to happen by middle of 2025. So
what happens with the EU in 2027? You said they're not going to be ready. What readiness are you talking about for 2027?
I'm talking readiness and militarily face Russia and fight it and defeat it. That's going to happen by 2027. There are a lot of countries, including, for example, Germany, who are now revamping their arsenal. Even United States are not ready for a fight with Russia right now. They will be ready only in 2027, and there is a doctrine where U.S. needs with its military budget to be able to fight both Russia and China at the same time, and U.S. even nowhere close to that. They need time until 2026.
So I heard that Russia just called up a bunch more troops, so now they have the second largest army in the world of like 1.8 million. Those guys have to be crappy, right? Because they're just people pulled off the street. What's the deal there?
They are nobody. They are the first thing when they're getting in the front lines is how to surrender to Ukrainians, because everybody knows now that Ukrainians treat these people very well. They provide good, normal food, clothing. They're not abusing them. It's completely different from what Russians are doing to Ukrainians that they got.
So how much training do the new guys even get?
Zero.
They just get here's your uniform and off to the front you go.
Oh, they will be lucky to get uniforms. Most of them don't have uniforms, and their families are buying uniforms for them. They don't have anything.
So
It's a meat. It's a meat that's going there, and it's going in the meat grinder, and it will be slaughtered. That's all what's going to happen with this.
All right, speaking of slaughter, there's new statistics. 11 people have been killed by exploding beepers and 4,000 injured. And I guess a lot of people got their balls blown off because you wear your beeper on your belt. So it's...
Any theories around that, you told me? Because I don't know. I mean, I
Well,
remember the people.
those people will no longer need a hand job. There will be no need for it.
Can you tell me any thoughts about exploding beepers?
Yeah, I mean that happened today. What, 9 people were killed, multiple were injured. I mean, it was. Did Israel claim
Responsibility?
claim that they were the ones behind it?
No, they haven't. But I mean, it seems obvious. And
Why do you say
so
it's
I'm looking at an article that says you can rig a beeper to blow up with the lithium battery. We've seen like Teslas like having, have battery fires that are ridiculously hard to put out. But
Rick, why do you say it's obvious that Israel did it? Because I mean, the terrorists have done a lot of crazy things, meaning both Hezbollah and Hamas. So why are you thinking that it is obvious that it is Israel versus?
Well, Occam's razor, like who's good at cyber operations? Who made all this the cyclotrons, the nuclear spinners in Iran, like spin out of control via a Stuxnet computer worm. Israel's great at that stuff, and Hezbollah's been attacking Israel. Who else would do it?
Yeah,
Well, you know what? These people who suffered because of this beeper, maybe they can
Centrifuge.
claim damages against manufacturers, and maybe they could get a lot of money from manufacturers for faulty beepers.
faulty beepers, that's a possibility. And then there could be a whole beeper suit thing going on.
So I mean, so what's not clear is that it's not obviously definite that Israel did it, and what is yet to be determined is, do all beepers have the capacity to blow up, or did Israel somehow, as part of its operation, get Hezbollah to supply itself
hold on a
with
second. Rick, you and Jacoby are in that space, but it's my understanding that phones in general monitor us on a regular basis. I mean, they kind of like know where we are with their GPS and a number of other things. So I would imagine that a lot of things that we carry around with us are able to be manipulated and controlled. So I'm not surprised at exploding pagers, just like I wouldn't be surprised at exploding microwaves or refrigerators and other things that are electronically controlled. But I also read a lot of science fiction, or at least I have in the past and everything. But is that something that is out of the realm of possibility, that these things can be controlled from afar, and that this is not that much of a new technology. Like I said, even back in the days of James Bond movies, you would hear about things that were being controlled and manipulated from outside.
Well, I mean, obviously they had to get malware into each one of those beepers, and the beepers, don't have much capacity. I mean, they're probably not overly sophisticated. Jacoby knows better, but they had to get malware in there that would make them overheat to the point that they blew up. And they had to get all the phone numbers for this whole network of Hezbollah.
But I mean, wasn't that similar to what the guy that's being sued? You talk about him all the time, Sasha, the guy that runs Telegram. So it seems to me that a lot of people are able to control a lot of these things, because I know he was facing some things, and even you, Sasha, brought up how he was controlling a lot of the terrorist network, the guy that's the president or the head of Telegram.
I know that he is actively cooperating with the French special forces, and he should be okay as a result of all that. I think the reason that he actually came to France, where he has a citizenship, because Russian mafia is after him, because he borrowed a lot of money to do this cryptocurrency. He never made it. He lost all the money, and it doesn't matter that he didn't make any money, and also the cryptocurrency stuff went in smoke. They don't care. They gave you the money, give it back, or else. That's it. So his best shot was to hide somewhere where they will not be easily reach him.
So we should also maybe mention the tragedy of Lebanon, because Lebanon used to be like a jewel of the Mideast, super pretty. People, went there to vacation. I'm talking 50 years ago.
More, 70, 80 years.
All right, but it's a teeny little country that's between Israel and all these other countries that don't like Israel. So Lebanon, and I'm sure they have crappy governance too, but they constantly get overrun by bad guys and get crap blown up. Beirut now is the symbol for a city in ruins. It gets rebuilt and then it gets destroyed, and they had silos blow up a couple of years ago because of improperly stored grain. And
Rick, you could say the same thing about Cuba, because Cuba used to be seen as a great nation and everything until Castro came in there and took it over, and they've had various other.
Well, I mean, the U.S. badly used Cuba in the 50s. We used it as our fuck pad, with the casinos, and Americans come in and they bang all the Cuban women, and they suck all the they spend lavishly, but none of the money goes to most of the people, so people are pissed. So Castro takes advantage of that. I mean, just watch either Godfather 1 or Godfather 2, which it has whole sections about people partying in Cuba.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Hey, Jacoby, just really quickly, you mentioned it earlier, and you just kind of mentioned it in passing, and I forgot the reference, but you talked about the Teamsters, and I know that Kamala Harris was meeting with the Teamster president. I think that was last week, and hoping to get their endorsement, but I think they're polling their members, and they haven't come out yet to say whether they're going for Trump or Kamala Harris's campaign and everything. But I just wanted your take on that, because apparently I know a lot of folks were thinking that he was just going to come out automatically with an endorsement for Kamala Harris, but he has made it very clear that he wants to poll his members, make his own decision. Who knows? He may even come out at the end of the day, because that's the Teamsters, a lot of the truck drivers and UPS drivers and folks like that. But what is your take on the Teamsters kind of taking a wait and see approach, and maybe even polling their members?
Well, they're going to be just like the unions. The union heads are going to vote one way. Some rank and file will vote a different way. It'll be great if the Teamsters go for the Harris-Walz campaign, because they are more union-oriented than the actual Trump-Vance campaign. However, one of these unions, the Teamsters included, are more male-dominated. Mm-hmm. There is a gender gap that is formed in this election. There are individuals, especially within the Black community. There are many, and this is where she has the trouble with the black male vote, is that there are many Black males that will not vote for a woman. So you're having that giant gender gap that's happening. So will that also show up in the Teamsters unions and all throughout? Probably so. So yeah, the Teamsters heads may go one way, and the actual rank and file will be split going other ways based on multiple different reasons, be it the gender gap, be it so on and so forth.
No, you
I
mentioned
want to
that.
go back to what you said about science. You said you read a lot of science fiction. So do I. This beeper thing is the most science fiction thing to happen since COVID. You've got Lebanon, I looked it up, 4,000 square miles, half the size of New Jersey. That's about one beeper explosion per square mile. They have 4,000 people injured. There must have been thousands of explosions all at once across the whole country because of computer hacking. That is so. Wherever you were, there was an explosion within a few blocks of you, and that is so science fiction-y.
The scary part now, though, will be the retaliation. Where they ever figure out where it came from, if it does happen to be Israel.
Well, no, Hezbollah's already said they're going to get revenge on Israel.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What is that retaliation going to be? That's the scary part. And what does this open the door to? What else is going to happen? Because if now we have beepers and pagers exploding, cell phones are going to come next, because that already happens with the lithium battery in the backside. Are we going to now hack are we going to have the black site hackers hack cell phones to do the same exact thing? So it's the retaliation, which is always the scary part, to figure out, okay.
Speaking of retaliation and everything, Jacoby, speaking of retaliation, I kind of mentioned it to Shaquille, even though he didn't really respond to it and everything. And I'm already seeing an incident that'll be taking place next week on the 24th, which is a week from today. But yeah, there's like a campaign, and I think part of that is those that are very much on the heavy side of the liberal politics or left politics and everything, because they are actually going to have a multiple state rally. And I think part of that is to kind of get their voice heard and maybe to push Kamala and some of the national politicians into a more leftist side of politics and everything. Because I got an email from Dante, who was involved in the wage fight, and a number of other people that are involved in that fight, and they're actually having a rally on Tuesday the 24th. So my guess is now that you're going to see some of the people, and I'm sure we're even seeing that in the West where Rick is, that are trying to push the campaign more to the left as opposed to the center, because some people like it when campaigns come to the center, and that does seem to be what Kamala Harris is trying to do along with Waltz. But then there are those on both sides that like to push him to their side and everything. So I just wanted your take as to whether we're going to see some people on the left trying to push
They can push, but 7 weeks to go, 49 days. How far can they push it?
And then I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rick.
I just wanted to say that airlines should get ahead of this blowing up stuff thing and make you pull your freaking batteries before you get on the plane. Because if you make shit start blowing up on planes, that's a terrible thing.
Well, I mean,
the only scary part with that, though, Rick, is that if you take a look at your normal cell phone this day and age, you don't have a removable battery pack anymore. And it's the same thing with a lot of pagers. Your desktops and your laptops that you carry on, many of the electronics, because of cutting down on space and the increase in the better technology and design on technology, a lot of these batteries are already installed on either motherboards, non-removable. So that's going to be a tough thing. So
how do you fight that?
You could probably go with everybody having you can have one of those bags, those metal bags.
Faraday cage.
We're going to have tighter security, much that we did after 9/11. Part of the reason that 9/11 was people started doing the whole, take off your shoes and do things like that. And most people do have some form of phone coverage, whether it's a cell phone or whether it's a laptop. So if we're going to have this kind of technology that can blow up wherever you want to blow people up and everything, and planes would be a natural target and everything, are we going to see tighter security if this kind of attacks are easier to do and everything? Because that's part of the reason, my understanding, of our tighter security in the airports that have now existed for almost 20 plus years.
You're going to have to look at closed networks. Because if you're going to have open networks, like, basically your cell phone is on an open network that hops around from cell phone tower to cell phone tower, regardless where it is, it can be found. Same thing with your laptop. When you're on any laptop or going to any website, you're basically on an open network. You're not on a closed network where things can be secured that way. My guess is airports and airplanes will have to drop to a closed network setup to where whatever signals coming across is going to be monitored by whatever comes through the actual closed network created by the airport or the airplane itself. So it'd be one data transfer system, like you're turning your airplane into a cell phone tower or a Wi-Fi tower. And that would be where your network and all the information comes through. And then based on whatever is, they're going to use AI based on whatever is taken from that signal and probably figured out by that signal. They're going to have to do that if they're going to go with any security on the inside. And to answer Mark's question about trying to push left or whatever, people are going to say whatever, and everybody has their gripe on what they want them, where they want them to go. You cannot, as president, cannot as leader, cannot as boss, save or provide every single thing for every person. It's a matter of negotiation and helping out the populace. And so pushing her to the left, yeah, people are going to give their gripes. But based on her interview today, she's not going to give in to giving details on anything. It's just going to be, hey, we're going to give this broad idea of this is where I'm looking, which is honestly what everybody else does.
Now, I would like to come back to where we started with Peter Thiel and somebody will collapse. I was thinking about that. And you know who will, if collapse? The first one and the only one who will collapse, it's a Republican Party. The reason why I think so is that in Democrats, you see a machine, a well-oiled machine with advisors, with people in their places where they should be. They're well-financed. Kamala Harris is looks like not only she's ready, and I think people underestimate what it takes to be the prosecutor and state prosecutor for so many years. Never mind senator. I would estimate it that a lot of idiots can become senators, but not too many idiots can become the state prosecutor. You definitely need to have a lot of very special skills. And she demonstrated the skills in the Senate. You can see all those clips on YouTube, how she performed. And they are going full speed ahead almost every day. There are some positive news. Whereas Trump, he's an individual. He has no party to speak of. He has no team. He has J.D. Vance. He's doing one thing, and then where else is Elon Musk is doing something else. I don't see the team behind Trump, and he doesn't need team, and he doesn't want team. He believes that he is such a genius that, in fact, that he understands very little what it's all about. He doesn't even understand how the government functions. Although he's been president for 4 years, he doesn't have a clue what's really going around. Now he was going away from Project 2025. Now he confirms that yes, he is familiar with that and he heard about it and so on. When all closest his advisors designed that. And you know what's the most important thing in this project is complete dissolving of U.S. government. They want to fire almost 55,000 people and replace them to all kind of clowns who the only thing is that they have to be loyal to Trump. That's the only one. So if American people will go for it, I doubt it very much.
So Trump's never really been part of an organization.
No.
When he was running, he had like 4 people that he talked to all day. They all kissed his ass. I'm sure if you're a senator or a representative, your whole day is spent just listening to people just yammer in your face and try to change your mind. And you have to compromise with people. Trump's never had, he has got no experience with that.
Well, everybody's already figured Trump out, though. All you got to do is say nice things to him. He'll do whatever you want him to say.
Yeah, if you're the last person to talk to him, then he'll
exactly. The other scary piece on Project 2025, which is something that Stephen Miller talked about even last year, is about taking away people's citizenship. The naturalized citizens, unnaturalizing people. Stephen Miller last year talked about how it was last year. Talked about how they were working on a plan for that, which is also part of Project 2025.
Absolutely.
So all these scary things are there, and they know. And this is where the Republican Party does a great job at messaging. They are fighting hard against it, but it's attached to them. But if you notice, what they're doing they're running away from the title to Project 2025 to say, oh, well, we're going to talk about Agenda 47. It's the same thing. If you look at the actual projects or the actual plans, they're roughly about the same thing. Then on top of that, you have now Donald Trump. This goes to the Project 2025 thing, which I thought was kind of funny. Donald Trump is saying, well, he doesn't want to tax overtime. In Project 2025 and in Agenda 47, they've talked about removing overtime. So if you don't have overtime, you can't tax overtime. So of course he's going to say, hey, we're not going to tax overtime. Well, in your plan, you're taking it away. So there's no reason to tax it anyway. So it's just.
we're going to get out of here. I have to do world politics on 30 minutes. It's been another lively discussion, but we got this conversation around education on the other show right now. So look forward to seeing y'all on tomorrow as well as on Thursday.
Bye-bye.